Hello! In this tutorial I want to show you how to work with Spring Boot and especially with Spring MVC. So first of all, to show you the difference between Spring Boot, Spring MVC and Servlet API, first of all we need to look how Servlet works. To do that I created simple Hello Servlet class. To create Servlet we need to extend HTTP Servlet class. To implement get method for our REST API, we need to override to get function. To do that, we need to pass HTTP Servlet request object and HTTP Servlet response object. Using HTTP Servlet request object, we can know which API call it and handle it. After that, making some business Java logic or working with some data from database, we are creating response for our users. In this case, our response in HTML data format, and it could be application JSON also. And this is simple hello world message. Let's have a look how it works. We go for our application, run as, run on server, choose Tomcat Servlet container. Our Servlet container contains our Servlet app, and we finish. So our server started. Let's have a look our console. There are no error. Let's make it clear. But in our inner browsers, we don't see any message. We just have 404 not found exceptions. Why? Because we don't have any interceptors to operate with our Servlet app / resource, but instead of we have Servlet app / hello Servlet interceptor. Let's check it. And yeah, we have hello world message. And if we want to make other interceptor, we need to declare it in there or create other servlet. It's hard to maintain, it's hard to work with this design or architecture of our application. To make life easier, we have Spring MVC framework. Let's have a look at our image. Why do we need Spring MVC? Spring MVC brings us two abstractions, dispatcher servlet and view resolver. Using dispatcher servlet, we know which requests should be mapped for which controller. And we could have a lot of controllers in our applications. And after that, working with our controller, working with business logic, making some call for databases or other third-party systems, we need to create some HTML or JSON responses for our users. And how to do it? We like a dispatcher servlet for our controllers. We have view resolver for our view lawyer. And using Spring MVC framework, we make our project, our code style, and other configurations clear. But in large applications, we use not only Spring MVC framework. In the Spring ecosystems, we have a lot of frameworks or libraries like Spring Data, Spring Security, and others. And to make all of them work with each other together right, it's hard work. And Spring Boot team made a lot of work to just simply run it using configurations. And it's more look like Ruby on Rails convention over configurations style. So let's go for start spring.io resource, and there we could create our Spring Boot applications. I choose Maven project using Java language, Spring Boot version 2.4.1, and let's write some project metadata. Group, artifact, name, this is the demo application, descriptions, packaging jar or var, version of the Java, and the most interesting part of the site is dependencies. So we have Spring Boot DevTools. Using this library makes our lives better. And we don't need to reload every time our server to see the changes in our application. I don't use Lombok, I don't like it. And in the web category, we see other projects in the Spring ecosystems. Currently in this tutorial or showcase, we just see how Spring MVC works. And we choose Spring Web based on the Spring MVC framework. And we also see Spring Reactive Web, which is based on Spring Web Flux project. REST repository, also good project. Using our database objects, POJOs, we could create REST APIs on top of our Spring data. Spring sessions, also useful things to handle sessions. And if we create REST API, it's very useful to use REST repository HAL Explorer. In the browser, we could see all of our structure of our application. Okay, this is the style of creating Spring resources. Web services, also useful project. Template engine. When we discussed about Spring MVC project, we say that Spring MVC gives us abstractions like view resolver. And by default, our view resolver uses team leaf in the Spring Boot applications. But instead of team leaf, we could use Apache FreeMaker or Mustache or Groovy templates. Let's use team leaf. Spring security or out of clients and other things. It's interesting part. I think we will discover it in the next session of our videos. SQL part, how to work with databases. Migrations. Okay. No SQL. Messaging. Scheduled workers, some operatings, Spring Boot Actuator, also good project. It gives us some health check APIs. Testing. Test containers, hot topic for nowadays. And I think it's enough for our application. After that, we press generate button and save application. I have already saved and extracted application. To do that, we press file, import, and we choose existing Maven projects. Next, after that, we browse for our saved locations. And let's have a look for our application. We need to stop our Servlet, close it. The difference between Servlet application, which we deployed for some Tomcat Servlet container, Spring Boot runs as executable Java file, and under the Spring Boot application we have as annotations. What does it mean to be a Spring Boot applications? It should have some configurations and some components, and we scan them. If we declare it under these demo packages, and I created some simple controller instead of Servlet. This controller uses under the hood Spring MVC, and Spring MVC under the hood uses Servlet API. So first of all, let's use controller annotation, and how you can see, we don't need to extend from some controller, main controller classes like in other frameworks in the JavaScript or PHP world. We also have get mapping annotations to create REST API, and we have some simple functions to return some home. And let's run this application to see how it works. Run as Java application. Okay. All right, run as Java application. Yeah. In the console, we can see our application started in 4 seconds. And it works by the port 8080. Let's open it. Localhost 8080. Hello world. How it worked? We have /resource localhost 8080 dash. After that, we are returning home resources. Our view resolver takes home argument and trying to find out the view depending to home. We go for source, main, resources, templates, and home HTML. And in this home HTML file, you could see that we have hello world message and hello world user, and Ctrl S saves, reload users. How I described it before, Spring Boot Dev plugin, it's very useful. Without reloading our application servers, we could see any changes in our application. Okay, what if we don't want to response HTML for our user, but we want to respond some application JSON file? And instead of using controller, let's use REST controller. And let's create some private inner class. It has string name, and int h getters and setters generated. Okay, let's create user objects. User set name John Smith, user set age 28, and we are returning user object, and in the declaration we are returning not string, we are returning user. Save it. Okay. How you can see, this is JSON file with two properties, name John Smith, age 28. This is beautiful and very powerful how Spring Boot works and how it gives us utilities to create and maintain such microservices or service-oriented architecture, or start from monolith application. And you can question me, what is the difference between controller and REST controller? And let's have a look. Under the hood, REST controller is simple controller, but it has another type of response body, which is JSON application. So, thank you for watching for this video. This is what I wanted to show you in this tutorial. Give me your likes or dislikes. If you have some questions, put them in below. And subscribe to this channel, because in the next video I'm gonna to show you how to create microservices application using Spring Boot, also using test-driven development approach, how to use test containers to test your application environments, also how to use Docker and Kubernetes for development, also how to use Jenkins for CI/CD pipelining, and also we're gonna consider how to deploy your application for some cloud platforms like Google Cloud Platform. Goodbye, see you.